it's so good. Oh my gosh, there have been so many good new releases for 2025 so far, and I haven't read a single one of them. We are going to be reading only new release books, which means that only books that have come out in the last couple of months, only new releases for 24 hours. So I'm going to set a timer, and just to clarify, I'm not staying up for 24 hours. We're just going to have 24 hours solid reading time. So every time I stop reading to like go to sleep, for example, I will just pause the timer and pick up again when we can pick up. But we're just going to have 24 hours of solid reading new releases, and the list is so good. Starting with Wildside by Elsie Silver, I have to be honest, I started this last night. There is something about Elsie's writing that is just so addictive, and you just burn through it. So I've already blitzed a decent chunk of it. I don't even want to know how far I am through it already. 27%. So I've almost read 30% of the book. And in case you didn't know, Wildside is on Kindle Unlimited, which is amazing. I will still be buying the book so it can go on the bookshelves next to all of my other Elsie Silver books, but it's on Kindle Unlimited, so there's no reason not to just like start immediately. So we're starting with Wildside. I know I really want to read The Charlie Method. I hopefully want to read Rebel Witch as well. There's a whole list, honestly. We're just going to see how many we can possibly get through in 24 hours. Anyway, I'm going to go keep reading Wildside. I already have some thoughts, but I'm going to save them and give them to you maybe once I'm like halfway through or something. I'm gobbling it up. So I guess those are my thoughts so far, is that I love it already, and I think it's shaping up to be my favourite out of the Rose Hill series so far. So I will catch up with you in a bit once I've read some more of Wildside. Hey guys, so it's now the next day. I'm now nearly 80% of the way through Wildside. I wanted to talk to you sooner, but honestly I just couldn't stop reading. I love this book. It's so good. I think, in fact, I'm pretty sure I can already say that I know this is my favourite out of the 3 Rose Hills so far. I do really want to do a reread of Wild Love, which is the first one, which is Ford and Rosie's story, because I did really enjoy that. But typically, like friends, like childhood friends to lovers, is like not one of my favourite tropes. But I do remember finding the like email element of their relationship really entertaining and really funny at the time. And I will say that in this, I haven't necessarily like laughed out loud or cried or anything, but there's something about Reese and Tabby's relationship that's just so good. Like you really feel like they're such a good match for each other. It's kind of Grumpy Sunshine in a way, but it's more like, it's almost like Grumpy Grumpy somehow. That's like working really well. I don't know if it's explicitly Grumpy Grumpy. He's definitely like grumpier, more introverted, but she just like doesn't take any nonsense. So she's there just putting her foot down, being like, I'm just not tolerating that. And even though they're both on the opposite sides of this, I mean, I don't know what is in the description actually on the back of the book, so I don't want to give away any spoilers, but even though they're both on like opposite sides of something, they're so kind to each other whilst also being mean to each other. I don't even know how to describe it, but I love their dynamic so much. The plot, as I was just alluding to, I think the plot in this is really strong. You can totally understand why it's so heartbreaking what they're going through, and you see so much of their like personalities and their characters and their values and how they are managing the entire situation that they're in. I'll also say that the full-on like spice, like everybody knows that Elsie Silver's books are super spicy. They are really spicy books, but I will say that in this it feels like the spice didn't come until much later in the book, which I personally really enjoy. Like I think spice is great, but only when it's added at the right time, and I don't love that whole insta-lovey thing. So the fact that these two have spent so much, like there was initial attraction there and that was there right from the beginning, but like the emotional depth of like taking the step into it becoming like spicy really took its time in this book so far, which I'm really enjoying. It does feel at the moment like we're nearly 80%, nearly dropped it. It does feel like at the moment we're like nearly 80% that we're in like a really good place. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen for the next 20%. Like in a way I feel like I'm kind of summarizing the book like I finished it, because it kind of feels like it's done, but it's obviously not done. So we'll have to see what happens. I hope it doesn't start to feel like slow, but I think this could be a 5-star read. I'm loving it so much. I love their relationship. My one comment, which is not me really reviewing this book, but I think the one thing that makes me sad about the Rose Hill series, sorry, this is me now reviewing the whole series more than just like this individual book. I think the one thing that is not as strong as it is in Chestnut Springs, which maybe it's just because Chestnut Springs is so like uniquely amazing that it just can't be replicated, but it is like the found family slash the dynamic of the rest of it. Oh, one thing I will say, which was such a fun cameo. There is such a fun cameo in this, which is the therapist of, I believe it's Griffin's Therapist, which is from Elsie Silver's very first series, the Gold Rush Ranch series. One of the characters in that series has a therapist who's like such a vibe, and she has like a tiny cameo in this book, which I thought was so fun to see her and go, oh my gosh, like we're going back 2 series of Elsie Silver's and getting a little cameo from somebody there. And it just shows you how all of these areas like in the mountains in Canada are all like, all the small communities are closely linked. So I really like that, but there just isn't the same strength of like the community found family vibe that you get in Chestnut Springs. Like all of those family dinners in Chestnut Springs that are just so hilarious, that have me like actually laughing out loud. Rose Hill just misses some of that. I think the bowling, like the dad's bowling team, which is what the books are like really focused on. There's like a bowling team of dads, and then each book is a different one of the dads from the bowling team. That is fun, but I wish there was like more of it. I wish there was more other stuff outside of just their relationship, but it is a romance, so I do get that. Anyway, I'm gonna go keep reading. I'm gonna finish off this final 20%. I'm loving it so much. Elsie Silver keeps saying that this is her favorite couple so far, I think, or it's like up there with one of her favorite couples of all time that she's written, and I really agree with that. He is so kind to her and so good to her. He has such a heart of gold, and he's so patient and tolerant while she's going through something so traumatic. And then she is kind of quite a bit meaner to him, but does these really lovely things kind of in secret. They're both like secretly caring for each other and doing just like lovely acts of service things without putting the pressure of like those emotions like on each other during a time when they each have quite a lot to deal with, and maybe the pressure of a relationship would be too much if it was like all forced on too quickly, or it's just on a natural fit right at the beginning. It just feels like the pacing of their relationship is done really well. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. They're falling in love and like learning they have these feelings for each other in a really natural way that is originally like led a little bit by lust, which you can imagine is how it goes sometimes. But it's a really beautiful like gradual progression of just like slowly really caring about the other person and doing more things for them, and realizing they're more and more compatible as the story goes on. I don't know, it's just really good. I'm loving it. Okay, I'm gonna go keep reading, and I'll catch up with you when I've finished it, to be honest, and we're choosing our next book. I love it when a man just like stands up for his principles and like stands up for his woman, even though like she's not necessarily, like she is his, but it's complicated, like it's a fake dating type thing. So like she's his but she's not his, and he's like putting his foot down at work because he refuses to do something that would like compromise, even though like Tabby has said that like it's fine. He's so principled, and even when like he signed up to the whole fake dating thing, which is obviously not a spoiler because that is like the trope of the book, but when he signed up to it, he just had like the purest of intentions, and Reese just has like such a golden heart. He's just such an angel. I can't. He's like the heart of an angel, and then like the body and the attitude of not. Anyway. Cute! Oh, that's such a good line! So it seems reasonable to assume I might just be in love with my wife. So good. Oh, it's so good. Okay, I just finished Wildside and I need to hit pause on my timer. So we now officially have 19 hours left. So that took me just under 5 hours to read that like 70% that I was at, which kind of tracks. It's not like a massive book, and I find that Elsie Silver's writing, it's just some of my favourite writing. It's so easy to read, it feels so natural. Her dialogue is just the best dialogue. It's why I think her first ever book, what was it actually called, the first one, Off to the Races, was like not as good as some of the other ones because she didn't have that dialogue, which I think is like her secret sauce, her magic. She didn't have much dialogue in that first book, or not nearly as much as she does in these ones, and she's just so good at it. Like her doing like the back and forth banter, it's elite. Anyway, guys, Wildside's a 5-star. That was so good. The final 20% was insane. Something happened that like really shook me, and I was very stressed and very scared for a minute that like things were about to be really bad. And oh, Tabby was just amazing. Reese is so swoon worthy. Milo is so cute. I love their little family dynamic all together. It was such a nice epilogue as well. Like, I love the way she always does epilogues, so you can kind of see where they end up. And I think that was all done really nicely. And I actually felt a bit emotional at the epilogue as well, which just shows you that even if it's like a silly contemporary romance, like it can still really hit you in the feels. Oh, that was so good. I don't even know what more to say about it. If you know Chestnut Springs, if you know any of other Elsie's books, that you'll like this. It's a great one. I liked this a lot more than I liked Wild Eyes. That was the second one, right? Yeah. I like this a lot more than I liked Wild Eyes. I really loved West in this one. Actually, West was so funny and so vibey in this book. And I did like him and Skylar. It just didn't hit quite the same as like, I absolutely loved this. And then I really want to read Wild Love to like check what I thought of it. I think I gave it 4 stars at the time. Because I really liked their banter, but I think some of the pacing was slow. I'm not really sure. This was my favourite one. This was so good. Okay, Love, 5-star. I'm going to reread this at some point. Like, this is reread worthy. I think this is now top my favourite Elsie Silver books of all time. Not that anyone asked, but I'm now going to tell you, lucky you, are from the first series, Gold Rush Ranch. A Full Stop is my favourite. Griffin, Chef's Kiss of a Man. So of the first series, A Full Stop. Of the second series, Chestnut Springs. Reckless is my favourite book because Theo Silver is book boyfriend supremacy. However, Heartless is the book that I want to reread time and time again because, like, Daddy Cade. But actually Theo Silver is my favourite in Reckless. So Reckless, Heartless, A Full Start, and Wildside. This was this way up. This was so good. Okay, right, now we get to start our next book, and I wasn't actually intending to start this so soon, but I can't stop thinking about it. I'm desperate to know what happened. So the next book that we're going to read is Rebel Witch by Kristen Ciccarelli. I read The Crimson Moth literally a week ago. If you saw last week's reading vlog, it was in that one. I think it was last week's. Pretty sure it was last week's reading vlog. I read The Crimson Moth in that. I gave it 4.5 stars, I think. I think it could have been 5 stars. I was coming off the back of Magnolia Parks and I wasn't really in the mood for a fantasy, but I wanted to read it. So it wasn't quite a full 5-star for me, The Crimson Moth. But the way I've been bombarded with people telling me that Rebel Witch is so good and 5-star territory, I'm really excited about it. So I also don't have the physical copy, so we're going to be downloading it. I'm pretty sure it's not on Kindle Unlimited, so we'll just be purchasing it twice, apparently, because that's the crazy life that we live if you're a bookish person with no self-control. Okay, yeah, so let's get this downloaded. We're going to start Rebel Witch. For anyone that wasn't here last week, didn't see last week's vlog, and hasn't heard of The Crimson Moth, The Crimson Moth is a story about a witch and a witch hunter. It is a dual point of view fantasy romance or romantasy book. The story starts in a world where being a witch is outlawed, where if you are found to be a witch, you are publicly executed. And so all the witches are in hiding, you don't want to get found out. And our main character, Rune, our female main character, Rune, is a witch, but is of course in hiding, but is a very like prominent member of society from like a wealth standpoint. She's like a socialite, and she pretends to be a really strong witch hater. But what she does do is in secret, she is known as the Crimson Moth, and in secret she is going to rescue witches that get caught, or she's trying to smuggle witches out of danger who are at risk of being caught, and that is her kind of secret identity. Like rich socialite, ditzy girl by day, Crimson Moth by night. And our male main character, Gideon, who is so swoon-worthy in book 1 already. Oh my gosh. Gideon is the leader of like the guard, the army, I can't remember what they're called, but he is the chief witch hunter, and his entire mission in life is to hunt down the Crimson Moth, who is this unknown person who is smuggling these witches. So that's what you need to know before you start The Crimson Moth. It's about a witch and a witch hunter. I obviously can't tell you how the first book ends or anything, but it ended on such a cliffhanger of, oh my gosh, what is going to happen now? And I'm desperate to know. So we're going to start Rebel Witch I'm not gonna be able to talk too much about it because obviously it's the second book in a series, and so the whole plot, like from start to finish, would be a spoiler. But I'll show you my reactions as we go as best I can. I'm so excited about it. We're gonna download it now. Oh no, it's finished downloading. We've got it downloaded, so we can start. I'm gonna press go on the timer. I reckon The Rebel Witch will take up a decent chunk of this timer because fantasy writing just always takes longer to get through than like contemporary romance writing. So let's hit resume. Okay, let's go. I am anticipating a good 8 hours of our 24 is going to go on this book, so let's see how we go. I'll chat to you soon. Even the Kindle Unlimited cover is so pretty. Hi. Sorry for the noise in the background. It's Saturday, Cameron's jet washing, I'm sat on the sofa reading. We're having a very nice day. I have been completely MIA because, oh my gosh, Rebel Witch is so good. It's 5-star. It's not finished. In fact, we're only halfway through, but this is a 5-star read. Like 5-star, 5-star. It's 56% of the way through. See, you know it's good when like that kind of makes me sad. I only have 40% left. I'm desperate to know what happens, but I don't want it to end. The pacing is so good. This is the best enemies to lovers that I've ever read. I'm gonna put that out there. It is true enemies to lovers. Sorry, that is so loud. It's true enemies to lovers. They seriously hate each other, but they also love each other. Like it's a romance, right? And it's dual point of view romance. True enemies to lovers. They're completely on the opposite side of this conflict. I cannot see, like somehow one of them is just gonna have to switch to the other side, or they're gonna have to run away together, or like who knows? I don't know, but some kind of resolution is gonna have to happen. It's not spicy, but there's lots of like tension. It's all done so well. It feels kind of like a little bit YA, but then some of the trauma that they have to go through, like some of the descriptions of the things that are happening are so harrowing that you're like, this is not YA though. And like the tension is not YA, but it's so slow burn because it's obviously 2 books long and they're like true enemies. Oh my gosh, it's so good. Anyway, that is all I have to say. Currently it's 5-star. I'm loving everything about it. The pacing is incredible. Like there are no down bits. There's no bits where it slows down or you're like, okay, we're like having the lull before like the next thing happens. It's just like go, go, go. And what I also really love about it, whilst I'm still ranting, is how much time they are spending together. Sometimes you can find in these books where it's like dual point of view, enemies to lovers, like they actually spend loads of time apart. And so you don't really see them and their dynamic like develop or see them trying to talk about the differences in their opinions or their positions. Whereas I feel like in this, Rune and Gideon are together a lot, or they cross paths a lot, or they have lots of opportunity to like deceive each other / try and explain their point of view to the other one who just like doesn't get it. Literally their whole ambition is to kill the other one. Like that's their whole thing. It's like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie. They like have to kill each other, but they don't want to kill each other. It's so good. Right, I'm gonna go keep reading because I literally feel like I haven't taken a breath in 56%. And all of a sudden I was like, I haven't been showing you my reactions. I haven't spoken to you at all. I'm gonna go keep reading. So I've only got 3 hours left and 5 minutes for my final 40%. It's so good. We're definitely gonna be going to buy the trophy version of this for the shelf. I'm also reading it on my Kindle because I'm really attached to my Kindle right now. Kindle supremacy is reigning this week, but right, I'm gonna go keep reading. I'll talk to you later. Okay, I have a few things to say. One, I've woken up sick. I don't know why I've woken up with a cold, but I've woken up like not feeling 10 out of 10, and I don't know where that has come from. 2025, my 2025 immune system has just not been it. I do not know why I keep getting hit with these like colds and stuff. Ugh, so annoying. Anyway, nothing, not even coughing and having to blow my nose 10,000 times since I woke up this morning, can get in the way of how my mood, how I don't even know if I'm in a good mood. I'm shook because we finished Rebel Witch. 5-star read, 6-star read, best enemies to lovers I've ever read. Gideon is god tier. The plot, the pacing, the side characters. You have 2 morally grey main characters, which is so much fun to read. They're true enemies, so they're both doing properly like shady, dodgy things to each other. They're constantly betraying each other. They're constantly trying to trick each other while simultaneously falling in love. It's such a fun ride. I could not recommend this series more. A duology is also so much fun. I mean, I wish there were more books. It's honestly breaking my heart that that's it, that I'm done. And I don't know, maybe Kristen Ciccarelli, maybe she will write more. I mean, that particular, like, it definitely ends, but I don't know, it's not like their universe. It's not like, there could be more, you know what I mean? Like, there could be something new that pops up on the horizon. I can't give it away the ending without there being spoilers, but I feel like she could write more, even though, like, it was wrapped up really nicely. I don't know, I felt so desperate to get to the end because I had to know what was going to happen, and it kept going, like, right into the end. I was also reading on my Kindle and it was like, you have like 2% left of the book, and I was like, yeah, but we don't know what's happening. It was so good. I recommend it so highly. Really high stakes fantasy, enemy to lovers, found family, engaging plot, great pacing. I'm just gonna keep repeating myself. 2 morally grey characters. It was amazing. It was so much fun. Highly recommend. It falls to me in the same category as like that One Dark Window kind of a vibe. It is high fantasy, but it's not like, or for me, the feeling is not like a Throne of Glass feeling. It's like a One Dark Window feeling. Highly recommend. So, having finished Rebel Witch, my original plan was to start reading The Charlie Method by Elle Kennedy, which came out very recently and is one of my reads for 2025, one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I guess all of the books in this video are, so that was a stupid thing to say. But I'm actually not going to read it next because Rebel Witch was so good, and I think if I read a book that's not also amazing after that, I'm gonna slump pretty hard. It's one of those books that could make you slump. So the reason I don't think Charlie Method is going to do that for me is because the more that I'm like reading about it, the less excited I am to read it, which is kind of a bummer. It is male, female, male, so it's a like why choose romance with 3 people, and because I know that Elle Kennedy's writing is already very spicy, I can just foresee it being a very lust-driven story, and I don't know, maybe it'll shift my perspective on like polyamorous relationships, or I don't even know if it's categorized as that. I don't know, like a throuple, I don't know, but I love a romance and I like it between 2 people. I actually was really hoping that this book was going to be about, like, there could be 3 people in it, fine, like a love triangle type vibe, but I actually really wanted Will and Beckett to end up together, and the vibe I'm getting is that is maybe not the case, that there isn't like 2 of them that end up together, like they kind of stay a 3. I actually have no idea how it ends or anything. I obviously haven't read it and I haven't seen any spoilers explicitly, just based on the descriptors. I don't know. I love the Dixon Rule so much and I loved the Graham Effect, but I think the Charlie Method's probably going to be quite a hard miss for me. I can't foresee myself. I know I read a lot of spicy books and I do like spicy books, but only if the spice accompanies emotional depth and then it like enhances the vibe. But if it's just like pure lust with no emotional depth, I'm just gonna be bored. Like it will just be boring. So anyway, I am definitely gonna read that book, and I think maybe I'll start it after the book I am gonna read next, which is Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonham Young. Now, if you have been here, if you've seen some of my reading vlogs from last year, you will know that Out on a Limb is probably one of my favourite books I've ever read. I loved it. I don't know why it tugged at my heartstrings well, I do know. The writing in that book is beautiful. The story is beautiful. All of the messages in the book that you can apply to your own life are so profound and so wonderful. And I think some people read Out on a Limb and found it quite boring. I think it's a beautiful book. So Out of the Woods is the 2nd book in the interconnected like standalone series. So if you've read Out on a Limb, which is about Bo and Win, Win's best friend is called Sarah, and Sarah and Caleb, who this book are about, have been married since they were very young, but they started dating when they were 17. They're now in their early 30s. That's the other thing I love about Hannah Bonham Young's, I say books, I've only read 1, but that book and now this book, they're about characters who are slightly older, and that's just nice sometimes because that's the age that I am, so it's just nice to feel represented a little bit in a book and to be able to read about characters that are your own age, and the love just feels like they're so beautiful. Anyway, so this story is about Sarah, who is Win's best friend, and Caleb, who I guess Sarah and Caleb have always been like a package deal to Win anyway. So you do get to read about them in the previous book, so you don't have to have read it to read this, but personally I love reading interconnected standalones in order. I think you get such a richer experience having met people in the right timelines and getting to know all the side characters in different ways and in the ways that the author originally intended you to get to know them. So I would highly recommend reading Out on a Limb first, but I don't think it's necessary at all. So this story follows Sarah and Caleb. They've obviously been married for a long time. They've been together for even longer, over a decade. And it is a story about Sarah wanting to find her independence, and I think like questioning like, who am I outside of this relationship? I've been with this man for so much of my life and we've always been like such a package deal, and her wanting to find her own identity. I believe that's what it's going to be about. So they've been experiencing a bit of rift between the two of them, as far as I understand it, based on the back of the book. It's also about how Caleb is the most incredible husband and always swoops in to save the day and rescues Sarah in every situation, which is obviously like dream husband material, but she's feeling like she's a bit of a failure in and of herself and she hasn't achieved all the things that she wanted to, and her wonderful husband is always there to kind of fix everything for her, and it's making her feel actually more distant from him. Anyway, they go on a marriage counselling retreat, or they go on a couples hike. They go to the woods, basically. They go into the woods on a marriage counselling. They want to fix the rift between them, get back to how it was, find themselves a little bit. I don't know, but I think it is bound to be a story that I fall head over heels in love with. I know I love Hannah's writing so much. The thing that I loved about Bowen Wynn's story, and the thing that I know I'm going to love about this, is that it gives you so many life lessons for yourself. Like, I want to read about if I'm married to Cameron for over a decade and you go through a dip in like the romance and you go through a dip in your love for each other, which if you intend to be monogamous with somebody for your entire lives is inevitable that you'll go through rough patches. Like, how to find like the beauty in like falling in love all over again with like your new versions of yourselves. I don't know how to articulate it properly when my brain is muddled with cold, but I just feel like I'm in love. Anyway, Shush Ellen. Rebel Witch was so good. I need to go on to the next book that I think is also going to be like a slam dunk of a 5-star. And I think that's going to be this. Can you imagine if we read 3 5-star books in this vlog? Because Wildside was 5-star, Rebel Witch is like 6-star, and I think this is also going to be like 6-star. Like, I know I'm going to love it, but I really am so excited to get started. And then probably based on the timer of how long we've got left, because we've currently got 12 hours and 40 minutes left, I think we'll be able to start the Charlie Method, but I'm not sure how much I'm gonna love it. I hope it's not a DNF. Anyway, for now, let's start Out of the Woods. And the thing that I love about Hannah's books, this one and the previous one that I've read, is that she has beautiful author's notes at the beginning, which kind of explains why she wrote the book. And I don't know, there's just something about, can I gush any more about this author? There's just something about her devotion to her books and her stories, and everything feels so beautifully considered and thought through and like gentle in a way that I just find very calming and makes me feel very emotional, and I'm not entirely sure why, but she's amazing. And she has another book coming out this year, which I also can't wait for, called People Watching. I'm very excited about that. I need to find out ways, like, how do I get arcs of these books? How do I get on these authors and publishers lists? Like, so many bookish girlies get like book mail from publishers. I haven't worked out how you do that yet. I guess there aren't lists. Do I just have to like slide into DMs? I feel like that's not how you do it. I have no idea. Anyway, right, I'm gonna go start reading and I'll catch up with you in a bit. We did it. We finished Out of the Woods. I am more sick today than I was yesterday, so I seem to be on a downward slope. So I'm probably not going to be able to articulate myself very well, but it was perfect. Perfection. Like, I honestly, I already feel like I don't know what else to say. Okay, right, let's say something more than perfect. 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 stars. There is something about the way that she describes love and tenderness in such a wholesome, wonderful way. I never ever tab my books. I actually have some really nice tabs and I cannot find them, so I was ending up like ripping up little post-it notes to like put tabs in, because there were so many lines that I just thought I have to come back to this. And it started so early. Literally on page 23, it says, "He's so familiar to me now that I feel myself having to concentrate to truly see him, as if he was a mural passed every morning on the way out the door, or the lyrics to a favourite song I've sung 1,000,000 times. Beautiful, special even, but known." And it just feels like such an accurate way to describe something that you start taking for granted. It doesn't mean you love it any less or you appreciate it. I mean, I guess it does mean you're not appreciating what's right in front of you, but there's still so much love there. But the way she's describing, like, he's like a favourite song I've sung along to so many times. He's like a painting that I've passed so many times, and like it's my favourite painting or it's my favourite song. But you start to not even be able to truly take it in because it's so familiar to you that how do you like stop and like notice it? It's just such her writing is so profound. It's the same way that like Taylor Swift lyrics make you feel so understood. I swear Hannah's writing is exactly the same thing for me. But it's also really whimsical and really funny. I'm not sure I captured any of the moments on camera, I'm not sure, but there are times when I'm actually like laughing hysterically out loud because it's so funny. And it's so whimsical. Like there was a bit in here where she made a joke about like gizmos and gadgets aplenty, like the line from The Little Mermaid, which they doesn't describe that, but it just means that you feel so like, yeah, I obviously know the phrase gizmos and gadgets aplenty from the Little Mermaid, and she just kind of like throws little sprinklings of things in there that just make you feel really like seen and understood. And it's just, oh yeah, I did I did tab a few bits that just made me laugh so much that I can come back to them. And listen to this just feels like such a trap that we could all end up getting ourselves into, or it makes me understand Sarah so much. It says, "Clinging on to a husband that I've started to resent through no real fault of his own, other than his being a safety net I wish I'd never needed in the first place." And it just showed you that like having a problem in a relationship is so much about our own individual journeys, and how he's never really done anything wrong, neither has she. But you can end up in these complex positions anywhere where you're just not fully communicating with each other, where you're not connected in the way that you once were before, and how do you rediscover each other anew? And oh, here's another one. "A lot of people will say relationships are 50-50, but I think that's a load of rubbish. We all have seasons and periods where we require more from our partner. The trick to a long-lasting relationship, in my professional experience, is not to get stuck at a set percentage." And I know like I've read that same piece of advice loads of times before, that actually you're 100% and sometimes one of you needs to give 80 and the other one needs to give 20, and you flex over time. But it's just so beautiful. And then the quote that I know she's plastered all over the like advertisement for the book and everything, but it is lovely, and it's so lovely in the context with which you find it in the book. "If you give me the space to grow, I'll plant myself next to you always." Yeah, it's a lovely book. It's all written from Sarah's point of view, so it really is about her self-discovery, and she went through something very traumatic as a young child, and the trigger warnings are in the front so you can read them. Hannah's so considerate and thoughtful about the trigger warnings that she puts at the beginning, and how she really like kindly considers the reader and what books they may or may not want to read that might trigger them, and she does it really beautifully. But there's a trigger at the beginning where she goes through something very difficult early on in her life, and so it's really her journey of self-discovery and how her own personal journey has affected their marriage. And so it's really a book about her discovering herself whilst also simultaneously reconnecting with her husband, with Caleb. And Caleb is just absolute goals. He's so gentle and patient and wonderful, and is flawed in his own way, but really through no fault of his own, because the thing that happened to Sarah when she was younger also really happened to him in lots of ways. And the ending, there's like a bit of a shock twist like I did not see coming, and that was like so heart-wrenching. But everything is beautiful and wonderful, and the epilogues are always so good because you see them lots of time, like lots of years ahead in the future. Just, it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I loved it. I highly recommend it. If you loved Out on a Limb, it's got exactly the same magic in it as that. If you haven't read Out on a Limb, I would really highly recommend it, reading it first and then reading this one. And it's a very gentle book. There's nothing crazy. It's not super high stakes. It's just a very human experience, a very Taylor Swift coded feeling when you read these books. So if you get it, you get it. Anyway, I could talk about this for ages. I'm so excited for Hannah's next book. I can't remember when People Watching is coming out, but the vibe of the front cover is very autumn coded. It's very like autumnal colours. So I'm imagining it's much later in the year that People Watching is coming out, but I can't wait. I'm so excited. Right, that is enough on Out of the Woods. I actually have 2 hours left on my timer. I read this one very slowly because I was like stopping and tabbing it, even though it wasn't a very big book. So I've read 3 books in 22 hours, which I think I could have read a little bit more than that if I'm honest. I have 2 hours left, but if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't feel great today. I feel like I need a bit of a sick day afternoon. I don't know if I've ever taken a sick day, but I might just have a bit of a chill afternoon. Maybe I'll start another book, but I don't really want to start The Charlie Method, and there isn't another new release that's like top of my mind right now, so I'm slightly cheating on the title of this video. We read new releases for 22 hours and 12 minutes. So not quite a full 24, but let me get away with that last hour and whatever that is, hour and 38 minutes. What a streak though. 3 5-star books. I so strongly recommend every single book from this vlog. This is probably my favorite reading vlog of all time, only because those are 3 of the best books I've read. Tick, tick, tick. Like honestly, tick, tick, tick. We had a very sexy, swoon-worthy, small-town romance, super high-stakes fantasy, and like a soft, gentle, big hug, warm cup of tea book to finish it all off. Like just what a perfect reading experience. I don't know if I'm going to top that for the rest of the year. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is, we've peaked in March. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know if you plan to read any of these. Let me know if there's anything you're reading at the moment that you think I should read. I do feel like it's not that many books on my radar at the moment or for the rest of the year that I'm really excited about. Like I've got a few upcoming that I know I'm pumped for, but I feel like my TBR could be longer, you know. I do feel like my TBR, it's got some room to be filled up. So let me know if you've got any recommendations for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely week. If anyone out there is also struggling with a bit of a cold at the moment, I hope you get over it. And if you're healthy right now and like free of any bugs, just revel in that wonderfulness. As soon as you get sick, even if it's just like a cold like this, you immediately remember what a luxury it is just to be able to like breathe normally and just not be sick and be full of energy and not feel like exhausted. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a lovely week and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye guys.